Our text today is taken from the 21st chapter of Revelation, beginning with verse 10. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like unto a jasper stone, clear as crystal. And had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. On the east 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city, and the gates thereof, and the wall thereof. And the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth. And he measured the city with the reed 12,000 furlongs, the length and the breadth and the height of it are equal. In this mortal life, there are limitations and frustrations. There are certain things we just accept, and sometimes we do not look too deeply into them or think too particularly about them. We cannot rationally capture them, and we cannot think, much less say, exactly what we would like to be able to about them. And so we just accept them and go on. One thing I am thinking about in that regard comes out like this. Every young couple, when they first get married, are very sentimental about and very hopeful about their home. Now, if you go about to have a house built, and if you're in a financial position to have a home designed according to your own personal wishes, what do you hope for in that building called home? You hope it will be something that will fit sentimentally in your mood. You hope that in certain rooms you'll feel certain ways. You hope that your surroundings will be one with you, and that in a certain sense your home will be a part of your family, a part of your domestic community. You hope that your home will be something that will add to the joy, to the relaxation, and to the sense of oneness and security that you feel. Now, if we wanted to get more philosophical still, we could say that home and family and camaraderie are scarcely imaginable without the thought of a house in which to live. Can we think of being happy and secure and fulfilled without incorporating into those thoughts having a house that we like and enjoy living in? Can we make a distinction between a house that we like and a house that we enjoy living in? Well, I certainly can. I see lots of houses that I like very much that I would not enjoy living in. They're just not me. Oh, sure, I could live in them. I could live in a barn or a shack or a tent if I had to, but I'm talking about what I would do if I had my choice. You see, that's just part of our makeup. Why is that so? It is so because it is part of God's makeup, and we are in His image. It is part of His mind and thinking. And it is a part of what He planned from before the foundations of the world, a home in which to dwell and to share together with His family. When you think about these things, do not get caught, as many have, in the Platonic and Gnostic heresies and disdain everything physical when it comes to comprehending the reality of eternity. and decide that if it's physical, it can't really be of infinite spiritual quality. That's simply not true. Jesus emphasized this physical and aesthetic nature of our heavenly home when he said to his disciples, "In my Father's house are many mansions. I would not tell you this if it were not true. I am going there to prepare this place for you, and when it's prepared, I'm going to come back and get you, and I'm going to take you there." Well, this has been a great intellectual puzzle and almost an emotional frustration to many as they have tried to envision what kind of a house God is building them. Sometimes it's discouraging. A man once told me that he didn't know whether he wanted to go to heaven or not. He never cared much for harp music, he said, and he never went in for marble. Sitting around in a house with marble walls and listening to harps for millions and millions of years didn't sound too exciting to him. Well, that is what happens when we try intellectually to capture infinite truth with the finite mind. Even so, even though we can't capture it, the truth is there. Whatever we need, whatever we want, whatever the truth is in this matter, those who believe in God are sure that God knows. And God created us in His own image. Even in our fallen state, we still retain some of the image of God. And so we have these desires and these ambitions that God originally had for us and put in us. Why should it be thought strange that a perfect and holy God who loves His children would want to and would be able to build for us that which is infinitely and ultimately fulfilling to the soul's desire? Why shouldn't it be that way? And that, according to the Bible, is just what God is doing. In fact, it is that which St. John is being shown here in this instance. It's the best way that God can do it, which is obviously the best way that can be done, to give us a personal glimpse now of what He is doing. Now, I've cautioned on numerous occasions against trying to see a chronology in this text. That's because while there is a future aspect to this which climaxes in the ultimate and infinite, there are also present aspects to the kingdom of God, the city of Jerusalem, and the home of the soul. We've been told in Hebrews 12:12 that we have already come to the heavenly Jerusalem, which, according to Galatians 4:26, is the mother of the church. Galatians 4:26 says that Jerusalem, which is from above, is the mother of us all, speaking to the church. And so it's not all future. We have already come to this. Part of God's purpose in giving St. John this text and this revelation in this text is to get us to comprehend our privileged inheritance and position now. And in fact, some of the language in the end of the chapter can only be applied to the present. Well, we could become as tedious as we wanted to in explaining the symbols of the following verses. We could talk about every stone and every dimension and every color and every shade, for all of these things have meaning. Well, they are good studies, and they are meaningful studies, and I recommend them. Even with my limited understanding, I could explain every one of these symbols to you, but it's questionable in my mind whether it would be expedient to go into that kind of detail at this time. But I do want to point out that what we are seeing here is the unity, the comprehensiveness, the cohesiveness, the even-handedness, and the impartiality of the plan of God. There is an invitation to everyone to become involved in it. And we are shown how carefully God has worked this out from the earliest time. The prophets are involved here. We see the ancients at work through the nation of Israel. We see the apostles involved here. And, most significant of all, every child of God is represented in this scene. John was carried away to a high mountain. Remember that this is symbolism. If one begins to look for a literal mountain, high enough to look down on a city 1,500 miles high, he's going to have a problem in this world, I can tell you that. We know nothing about 1,500-mile high mountains. Even so, if the city is 12,000 furlongs, and the length and the breadth and the height of it are equal, and if this were literal, then the city is 1,500 miles high. Now, Mount Everest is around 28,000 feet, which is nominally 5 miles, something like that. This mountain here would be, 9,120,000 feet high, which is nearly 300 times as high as Mount Everest. Those are pulled off figures. I don't know how close they are, but they're in the general area of it. And that would be just the height of the city. Then the mountain would have to be higher than that, so you could be looking down on it, as John was. It's simply useless. It is folly to pursue that kind of thinking. We're going to see, as we get into verse 16, that there is symbolism here that has other meanings as to the dimension of the city, which are both informative and useful. And as we said, if this is true of the city, then it's even more true of the mountain upon which St. John was taken. But of course it wasn't actually a mountain. St. John is taken to a high place in the sense of being lifted up in the Spirit and exalted to the throne of God to see from the divine point of view. And this is what we've been seeing all along. And that is the meaning here. John is being given a special divine insight into what God has done. The bride, then, the Lamb's wife, is a city. It is beautiful, bright, and gleaming. Verse 11 says, having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. Now, as near as I can tell, the jasper stone is the diamond, and the symbolism here is of the brilliant crystal clearness of the diamond. It may be questioned why something that is so clear that you can almost see through it is valuable. Well, ask any woman who has one on her finger or around her neck why it is valuable, why it is regarded as beautiful, and why people want them. Why have people killed to get them? Why have governments and brilliant and powerful men scheme for years just to get one of those little stones no bigger than a bird's egg? Why? Because there is an inherent feeling in natural man that there is nothing greater as a possession than a marvelous diamond. Some of the greatest stories and intrigues and mysteries known to man have involved diamonds, such as the Hope Diamond and others. Now, this is not a learned characteristic. God put this regard for diamonds in man when he created him. Some scholars think that Ezekiel 28:13 indicates Satan, before his fall, had charge over the making of precious stones such as the diamond, and that this great wealth was what went to his head and caused his downfall. Thus it is easily seen why the Holy Spirit uses this symbol to express great brilliance, beauty, and value. Perhaps you do not like the imagery of that city being compared in brilliance and beauty and value to a diamond. Well, what symbol are you going to use? Which means more? What would you prefer to say? The point here, I think, is that St. John has said all that can be said with words. There's no way of using words to more adequately describe the brilliance, the sparkle, the purity of what he saw. Now, this city had a wall around it, and this is a symbol that speaks of protection. You may ask what this city needs to be protected from. One answer is that part of infinity, utopia, and perfection is to feel totally, in every sense, safe from anything and everything. Safe, completely safe. Is that not right? Is that not very much a concern with everybody? Where is there a place where I will feel safe, where there are no enemies, no dangers? So we move off to the wilds of Montana and carve our houses out of rocks and build them with massive doors. And then we lean back and say, now we are safe, and a snake crawls out of the cracks in the rocks and bites us and we die. There's no place on this earth like that. But this is a big passion with everybody. I want to be safe. I want to feel secure. In this city of God, we are forever safe and secure. That is the imagery here. A great wall of safety surrounds this marvelous city to protect from every kind of danger, from any sense of vulnerability and insecurity. The city had 12 gates. Now 12 is the symbolism of the church. This great city is the church. This great city is protected by the purity and the holiness of the gospel. Remember that in the week preceding the marriage, we saw a rider going out on a white horse to make war in righteousness. What is the power and the force that defeats all enemies and that protects the people of God? It is righteousness and truth. That's what it is. There is no greater force in this world. Well, we have learned to laugh at that. That's material for kids' Sunday school classes. But you see, it is true, my friend. It is true. And if you take the Bible seriously, you know and believe that in the final analysis, truth and light and justice and right will destroy everything else and will prevail. There is nothing to preserve us and to protect man in the final analysis but the truth, and in the final analysis, that is all that is needed. The truth goes out into the world through the 7 lamps of fire burning and the 7 angels with their 7 trumpets. The gospel is propagated by the Church of Jesus Christ. There are 12 gates and 12 messengers having the names of the 12 children of Israel, which symbolize the camp of the saints, and there are the 12 foundations of the apostles of the Lamb. Next, we learn about the shape of the city, where the gates are located, how high it is, how wide it is, and so on. What does all this mean? Well, first of all, gates signify entrance. You will notice that while the city is made out of all kinds of stones representing individual personalities, gifts, and talents of God's people, the gates are of one stone, pearl. Verse 21 says, "And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Every several gate was one pearl. And the street of the city was pure gold, as if it were transparent glass." Now, what is this telling us? It is saying that the pearl represents Christ. Christ is the gate. Christ is the door. He is the new and the living way. What is it that the pearl represents? Well, we all know the story of the pearl, do we not? Through the bitterness and the agony and the pain and the hurt of the wounded little oyster, the pearl is formed. It is one of the paradoxes of life that beauty and perfection and worth come from the anguish of the living thing that creates it. This symbolizes our access to this city by Christ's agonies, his suffering, his wounds, his being put to all that hurt in order to make this most precious and glorious access to God. Christ, said the writer of Hebrews in chapter 10 and verse 20, is the new and the living way. Christ is the gate, the great pearl of great price. And so the gates of the city are pearl. In verse 21, the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth. And he measured the city with a reed, 12,000 furlongs. The length and the breadth and the height of it are equal. This city is square. On each side there are 4 gates. Each side there are 3 gates. The city is as long as it is wide, and as high as it is long. What do we have here? What does all of this mean? Next time we shall look into that, if the Lord is willing.